Hello, hello, hello. Today, we're going to talk about some Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 content. I thought I would do just a quick little guide on the Bulwark. This is by far my most played character, and you guys surprised? Like, come on now. But he's easily my favorite, and I've had probably well over like 40, 50 hours on him now, or something along those lines since release. I did get the early access, so it was kind of crazy, and he's so fun. He's probably my favorite character easily. I think next to the Heavy and probably Vanguard and Sniper. With that being said, let's talk about everything. So real quick, if you guys are not into parrying, then do not play this class. There are other classes where parrying is not as imperative. Parrying is something that's needed across all classes, but the Bulwark specifically needs to parry often. And the reason for that is some of the perk tree revolves around him getting parries, revolves around his armor regeneration. And in order to get some of that, you're going to need to parry very often. As I mentioned, a lot of classes rely on parrying, but the Bulwark specifically, you need to do it almost all the time whenever you can. So just keep that in mind. So let's talk about weapons really quick, okay? So personally, for the ranged options here, we only have two, okay? You've got the bolt pistol and then you have the plasma pistol. And I'm just gonna keep it real. Do not use the bolt pistol. I like this thing. It's cool for lower ranks when you're doing the baby difficulties, but when you start pumping up the numbers in the real difficulty, this thing is going to fall off heavily. And unless you can get at least like to the relic tier very easily, which I think you'll be able to do that with the plasma pistol more effectively, just don't use the bolt pistol. This thing will hands down keep you in like the low tiers forever. It's just not there. The problem with the Bulwark is he doesn't have a lot of insane ranged single target damage. His wave clear is his melee weapon, so you don't need to worry so much about wave clear with a ranged option. Your ranged option should be how to deal with the like extremists and the other ones that will give buffs to the drones. So for those of you that don't know about the mechanic, they're the big guys, the bigger mobs that actually have the double swords or the rifles, those mobs, they control the little drones with something called synapses. So if you kill those mobs, the drones, the synapses will break, and then they will all die or they'll dissipate, they'll lose their buffs, etc. So you need to be able to kill those mobs as effectively and quickly as possible, and the bolt pistol is not going to do that. It shouldn't necessarily solely be your job to do that. Clearly, if you have a good team surrounding you and you have an actual, situation that's going to call for you to have that kind of thing done, then, it's not that big a deal. But just for situations where maybe sometimes you have to solo, maybe your team's dead or you got to wait 50 seconds, you got to kite around, whatever, you're going to really not like this thing. It's just going to hold you down. I just can't recommend it. It's not very good. Now, the plasma pistol, this thing goes hard. It does a lot of damage. The ammo capacity is kind of mid. You're realistically only going to get like 10 charge shots out of the whole thing, because if you full charge it, it's going to take 10 of the magazine per. So if you go with this pistol, you got to be careful and use it sparingly and do not miss. When you start getting into higher difficulties, it's going to take you roughly around 4 to 5 shots just to get an execute off. So just bear that in mind, that per big mobs that you're going to be using, this thing's only going to help you with probably 2 mobs before you're going to be bone dry on ammunition, which is why I recommend that you go with the beta version, because if you go with this one, the venting speed, it sounds good in theory, but personally, I just don't see much of a use for this. I mean, I guess it's all preference, but I rather have the magazine capacity because I need to be able to continuously keep shooting these mobs in case I have to take care of one by myself, or I have to, lessen mobs or hit range options. Maybe there's a zoanthrope that spawns in, a neurothrope that I need to shoot at, just options where range is necessary. I'm going to need more magazine capacity. That's just what it is. And as you start unlocking more and more and more, you're going to go ahead and keep choosing the magazine upgrade until you get to the Ophelian Liberation. This one, in my personal opinion, is the best option. I think that there's not really much room outside of this one. I'm gonna put myself up here for a minute. So let's talk about the perks, okay? So the perks, we're pretty much gonna be just start here with common cooling. So common shots generate 10% less heat. This is good because you're going to be spamming the charge shots, and that's going. The common shots are going to be like if you need to kill like little drones, you need a little bit of wave clear, so that way you don't burn through your ammunition like crazy. So this one's good. And then you're gonna want to go ahead and go over to rapid cooling. So after killing 10 enemies in rapid succession, weapons do not heat for 5 seconds. This is great for whenever you're just mowing enemies down and then you can just continuously shoot. And this will help you kind of burn those mobs that need to die, so that way the synapses link will break. And then you want to go for blast radius, just because this will give you kind of like the damage increase. And it's like it's not even so much the damage increase, it's the radius. So when you're firing into a pack of mobs, it's going to have an explosion and it'll have kind of a grenade effect. So it's kind of just like having an extra pocket grenade launcher. So this is a plus. So from there, we're going to go into blast radius, and then we're going to go ahead and go into the shots charged 20% faster. This is so you can spam your charge shots off, like not off cooldown, but more quickly. And then from this point, you're pretty much just going to go straight down the list all the way to the end over here at charged cooling. So charge shots generate 10% less heat. It allows you to keep spamming over and over and over again. And then here as well, after a perfectly timed dodge, the damage radius of charge shot is increased by 10% for 5 seconds. Massive. You're definitely gonna want this one as well. And as just an honorable mention for like the other options here, even though I said the Ophelian Liberation is the option that I would prefer just because of the ammo capacity, I think the overall all-round pick and probably the more efficient pick is this one right here, the Crusade. I think this thing is probably the most optimal, just kind of like the best of both worlds, especially since we're running a lot of venting speed. This just makes more sense for the build that I'm recommending. I just really enjoy having the magazine capacity, but that's like, again, me having solo mentality in my mind where I need to have more ammunition to do things myself. But if you have a good team and you have players around you that are relevant and that are going to actually help you with the mission, the Crusade is going to probably be the all-around better pick. All right, let's move on over to melee weapons. Okay, we're gonna start with the chainsword. So I'm gonna be honest with you, I really don't like the chainsword. It's cool, it's dope. I enjoy it for what it is, and I think it's really strong in early missions and the kind of like baby mode missions. But when you start getting up there, dude, the heavy attacks just fall off so hard, in my opinion. I really don't think that this thing holds a candle to the power sword. But if you must use it, I would recommend choosing any of the two that give you fencing, just because fencing is going to be the biggest thing with your parrying. So for those of you that don't understand the defense like mechanics or whatever of like what is fencing, what is negative block, what is balance. Fencing basically just means that you're going to have a more window of opportunity for parrying. I think something along those lines is basically just buffing the parrying. The balance just gives you a general balance of both worlds. So you're going to have the perfect parry, a window is still going to be there. And then you're going to have kind of a good balance of like speed and cleaving and things like that. And then when you choose the one that has down where it says the block is down, this basically removes the perfect parry away, but you gain a beefy, and I mean a beefy buff to your strength and speed, which is totally okay. This is really strong in the early game, and then you might like it a lot because I fell into this trap as well. But personally, when you start getting your build together, the fencing option is just makes more sense, especially for this build specifically where parrying is the main focal point. Fencing is going to be the one that you're going to want to get. So if you're following a different build or you're trying to do something different from what I'm going to recommend here, then fencing might not be the best option, and maybe one of these other two might be the best. But for the build that I'm going to talk about for the perk tree, fencing for sure. And the same thing goes for the power fist. If you're going to use the power fist, I know that the green tier doesn't give you a fencing option, which sucks. But yeah, which is why I wouldn't use the power fist with this build specifically early on, just because you're not going to get that opportunity. If you're going to run the power fist, you're going to pretty much have to use the balanced version, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just kind of sucks because the fencing option is really the focal point here. So I wouldn't necessarily go with the power fist on this build either. But if you want to use it, you can. But if you get to artificer level, fencing for sure. And the main course here, all right, the big daddy cruiser here, this is we're going to be using the Oath. This thing is probably going to be your main use in all scenarios. Like I said, fencing with the chainsword is okay. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it just does it. Like the power sword is just better in my opinion. I really just think this thing is just far better. And then when you get up over here to the relic tier, you're going to be utilizing the Crusade, the whatever the hell this name is, and the Crusade. This is going to be your go-to option. You're going to lose a lot of cleaving potential, potential, but that is okay because the power sword has two different stances. One that's the speed stance and one is the power stance. And if you sit in power stance, you get more cleave and you get more just range on your weapon, I think is what it is. And that helps out a lot, even though the cleaving is going to be kind of butt with the fencing weapon. Your goal with this is to parry and drop a ton of shock damage, which we'll talk about in a moment. As for perk tree for the fencing weapons, you're going to go with armored strength, and then you're going to go with master of offense, then you're going to go perpetual strength, and then momentum gain. Each consecutive light attack increases light attack melee damage by 3%. So this is why we're going to stay in light stance for 90% of the match. And then from there, we're going to go into fencing blade, which speed style combo length increases from 4 to 5. And then from here, you can choose Chaos Slayer. Just going to go into hard target. So while performing a light combo, you take 15% less range damage, which is great because we're a melee oriented class, and whenever we're throwing damage with our sword, we're pretty much getting shot up the entire time, and you don't want to have to stop doing combos to block or dodge around. You want to be able to kill the mobs and keep pushing. The next thing we're going to go into is Reeling Blow. Enemies hit by Power Rake deal 30% less damage. So this is just your like debuff, essentially. You're just popping it so that way you just are a little bit tankier for a few seconds. So just keep that in mind whenever you have this, and when you get to this point, this is going to be the absolute best thing that you're going to enjoy the most, because we take a lot of damage since we're in the thick of everything. And from the Reeling Blow, we're pretty much just going to go the top three up here. We're going to get Majora's Slayer, and then we're going to get Terminus Slayer, and then we're going to get Speed Restoration. Okay, so here we're going to go over the tree. So we're going to pretty much, we're going to pick on the front. We're just going to start from the far left and go over. So we're going to get Intimidating Aura. This is going to be hands down the best thing that you can possibly choose. I did see a couple options that, like, after Shield Bash, the melee damage increased by 25%. I don't think we need this. I think that our melee damage is okay. This is kind of like you want to sacrifice tankiness and utility for more damage. This is sort of a solo player's mentality. If you're playing with the team, this is not the optimal pick, so just keep that in mind. But Intimidating Aura is really good. A perfectly timed parry deals area of effect damage within a 5-meter radius. We are parrying all the time. That is the whole point of this build. We are going to be parrying. That is why we have a fencing weapon for parries all the time. So we want to be able to enhance our parrying. Then from here, we're going to go into Shock and Awe. Enemies in shock area take 25% more damage. So pretty much what happens is the signature skill that we're going to go with, which is Emergency Countermeasure. When your armor is depleted, a reserve shock grenade automatically detonates at your position. The cooldown is 120 seconds for this effect. So we're pretty much going to lose our armor at some point. It's going to happen often. It's going to happen very often. So when that happens, you want to have a bit of reprieve, and the shock grenade is going to give you that reprieve. You can kite through it. You can do more damage in it, which is the whole point as to why you want to go for this one, or not this one, I'm sorry, this one right here. So in the shock area, right? So shock grenades, big thing for us. And then also because we drop a shock grenade whenever our armor gets depleted. So this is huge, and they just take more damage, and this is really good for getting these parries off. Then we're going to go up here to Defensive Advantage. A perfectly timed parry creates a shock area for 5 seconds. This is, again, fantastic. To my knowledge, I don't believe this shares a cooldown with our signature ability, so we can basically drop 2 different shock circles wherever we kind of choose if we really need to. So we can strategically place one with our perfectly timed parry, and then move to another area, and then have another shock grenade ready if we lose our armor or whatever. So definitely, again, build is focused around parrying, necessary. And then here we're going to go with Unyielding Ceramite. The delay before armor begins to passively regenerate is reduced by 5 seconds. And yeah, this is just kind of utility. Next, we're going to go into Concussive Force. Shield Bash deals more damage. This is just a little bit more damage. We use our Shield Bash to kind of stagger enemies, so you want to do as much damage as you physically can. This also hurts the drones and can knock them down into the point where you can get a execute off. Next, we're going into Purity of Purpose. The banner deals a small amount of damage over time to enemies within the area of effect. So as you can kind of see, we're getting a little bit of an AoE theme going. We've got shock grenades dropping every few seconds. And then we also have our banner, which will do a small amount of AoE damage. So we're just kind of stacking damage on damage. We throw down the banner, and then we get a parry off, throw down a shock grenade, and then we lose armor, throw down another shock grenade, and we're stacking AoE damage. And as long as our team plays around that, and if they are aware of what's happening, then this is going to be really good. Now, this next one, you're going to want to get inspiration. This is the one that I would prefer to have, but I'm just not level 24 yet, so this is not an option for me at the moment, but this is what I would typically pick if I were to continue going forward and get this eventually. This is no question I'm going to pick this. But if you need a placeholder, in my opinion, rejuvenating effect is just way better. And when I say way better, I just mean it's better than glory shield. So all squad members within the banner's area effect take 10% less damage. I don't think the banner lasts long enough. And also in some scenarios, the players just don't play correctly. And sometimes they're brainlets and they're running around everywhere. So in my personal opinion, you're just going to have to accept that this is not like, it's good on paper and in theory, but it heavily revolves around your team not being absolutely just brain dead from the neck up. So I don't really trust my teammates like that. But at least for this one, when the banner is activated, it revives incapacitated squad members within its area of effect. This has been invaluable for a lot of scenarios for me where I just pop the banner down and I have a couple teammates down because I'm a dodge roll master. I be living through everything all the time, and I'm crazy with the dodges. So I'm usually the last one to go down ever. And typically whenever my team is down, if they're within a small area of each other, I just pop this down and both my team is back up. So this is a really good one if you're like worried about your teammates being absolutely like mentally challenged. So this one could be the safe pick, but overall the real pick is probably this one. So where they deal more damage. This is what I would prefer to have, because then at least everyone's doing more damage and they're more likely to stand in here just to do more damage and kill everything much quicker. But again, that is highly dependent on your team not being stupid as hell. So if you don't believe in your teammate, go with the first one. If you believe in them and they have brains, use this one. And that covers the build. We'll go ahead and hop into a match really quick, and I will go ahead and give you guys a couple little run throughs and on some examples of how to make this work. Cool. And there you go. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and also subscribe if you want some more Warhammer content. I'm trying this game out, and if it's cool and if you guys enjoy it, I'll keep doing some more content, play some different classes and try things out and do some more guides and maybe stream some more of it. It really just depends if it does well on the channel. But overall, Warrior Guide for BDO will come out soon, eventually within the next, hopefully, couple days. It's taking me a while to get some of the footage and things like that and information correct and whatnot. So bear with me on the Warrior Guide for PvP. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.